Okay, as we welcome in Ben Zion Cohn, Mark Frankel, Irving Fishbaum, Aaron Swade, Shelley Zeitlin, Ruven Pollack, Marshall Castle, Michal, Stephen Holtzman, Dr. Black, Baruch Ian, Shimon Klein, Nachman Chaplin, Menachem Yemansky, Shalom Fogel, Moshe Lehman, Elia Shutman, Yitzi Muller, Rabbi Kranz, Pesach Zigelman, Yehuda from Yerushalayim, Abba Steinhauser, David Helfgott, Ibn of Sheva Brachas. As we are sponsored by, where are my sponsorships? No. There they are. As we are sponsored by Baruch Ian, Leil Nishmas Esther Bas Yoni, Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba, Avram Ben Shmuel HaKohen, Lefu Shalema for Baruch Shalema Ben Lina, by Aaron Swade, Leil Nishmas Chana Bas Shmuel, and his sister Freda Bas Shaul, by Shimon Deer for the Chayli Adaf and Chayli Yisrael, by Mark Frankel, Lefu Shalema for Miriam Sarah Bas Tzipora and Chana Bas Gittel Esther, by Eric Goldwasser for Akor Satay for what Hashem did for his family and for the Chayli Yisrael. We learn from my Shver Avigdor Aryeh ben Rivka, for Meir ben Chayesar Yudas Cyril Bas Miriam. They should have a refuah shalema b'seich shar Chayli Yisrael. We learn, as it is the last Sunday night of the year, we learn to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Dibarta Bam L'asa Yisnachas Ruach Liyitzreinu, and we have in mind that it should protect us, and that this is why we want Hashem to give us a good, untroubled year. We welcome in Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Abe Arbach, Yehuda from Yerushalayim, and Harrison Kletzel, Neil Greenbaum, who is just joining us. Here in Shul, we have Saba, we have Berish Kesselman, we have Gedalia Engel holding the fort. We are holding, if you remember, we said that Ashkelon, 2 lines from the bottom of Chav Zayin Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom of Chav Zayin Amud Beis, getting richer here by the minute. Welcoming in as our 26th Zoomer of the evening, Ken Yerbu Mo Kushner. If you remember, we said Ashkelon Saita, we find that we do Gilgul Shmua. That means that when Gedalia is chayav 1 shvua, I could roll upon him another shvua, which otherwise I would not be able to demand. So Ashkelon Saita, we find it by the Saita that when she has to swear that she wasn't adulterous when she was in the sewer, you could roll on her also when she was an Arusa, the Isura, because that's Isser. Memoina Minala. And how do we know that by money, if Gedalia was Moida Memixus and he has to swear about money, I could roll upon him also a shvua about Karka? Tanid by Rabbi Shmuel Kal V'chaimer, it's a Kal V'chaimer. Oma Saita. A saita, you cannot demand from her to drink with 1 witness. You have to have 2 witnesses that saw her do some closet herself in room 208. Megalgalin, we do Gilgul Shvua. Mamain, sheniten li tava be'ed echad. You could demand a shvua with just 1 aid. Einoi din shemegalgalin. So the Gemara says, okay, Ashkelon bevadai. We know that we do that in the case of certainty. Suffik minala. Now we cannot compare it to Saita, which is a suffix, because Saita, even the claim, the initial claim, could be for a suffix. We're not sure if she was adulterous. But by money, the initial shvua has to be only for a claim that's a vadai. So the Gemara says, Tanya, 3 lines from the top of Chof Ches Amud Aleph, Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer, while we couldn't do it with a reasoning of a svara, but Nemra, we learn it out from a Gzeirah Shava. Nemra Shvua B'chutz, it says Shvua outside the temple by Dinei Mominus, V'nemra Shvua B'fnim, and it says Shvua inside the temple by the drinking of the Saita. Ma'ashvua Amura B'fnin also b'safik kavadai. We make it even in the case of a suffix. Av Shvua Amura B'chutz, also by Mominus, also b'safik kavadai. We could demand a Gilgul Shvua only on something that we're not sure about. Now, Ad Heichon Gilgul Shvua, how far could I roll upon Gedalia? Gedalia, I said Gedalia, you owe me $1,000. He admits to 500. And we said that therefore, since he has to swear about Moed B'Mikzas, I could roll on him a shvua. How far-fetched could be the shvua that I roll upon him? Where I could say, swear that you're not my Eved Kanani. So the Gemara is aghast. What do you mean? There's no way I could demand that. To the contrary, if I demand that, I'm excommunicated. If you say somebody that has a cheskas, that he's a yid, that he's an Eved Kanani, that gives a person excommunication. The Tanya Akari L'Chavera Eved, if you claim that somebody is a person that has a chazaka, that he's a kosher yid, you claim that he's an Eved Kanani, you're excommunicated. Mamzer, if you say that he's a mamzer, you get malchus. Rasha, if you claim that he's a rasha, yored imo l'chayev. You could that if you say that somebody is a rasha, so you could interfere with his livelihood in ways that normally you're not allowed to do. Ella Amar Rava, no, what I say is swear to me that you weren't my Eved Ivri. There I'm not impugning his character. I'm just saying that he owes me money, he owes me service. Swear that you weren't sold to me as an Eved Ivri. So the Gemara says, so what do you mean, how far? That's just a claim of money. That's a regular claim. It just means that he owes me the service. He owes me money. And we said you could be megalgal about owing money. No, Rava says that an Eved Ivri is more than money. From the fact that you could give an Eved Ivri a shivcha kananis, that means you own to a certain extent his body. And that's already a very big chiddush that I could make that claim. Rava l'tamei dama Rava Eved Ivri gufay kani. So the Gemara says, well, if gufay kani, so then it's like karkois, because Eved hukish karkois. Ihach yahainu karka. Says the Gemara, no, karka, it makes sense. Sometimes people sell karka privately. They don't want to know people to know about it. But the sale of a person, that has a curl. And since there's no curl, there's no rumor, I might think that I can't demand from him such a shvua. People sometimes sell karka privately. So im isa dezavin, and therefore if I sold it to him, less like kala, there wouldn't be a rumor about it, and therefore it could be that I could have to ask him to swear about it. But a human being, im isa dezavin, if Gedalia sold himself, and therefore I might think that it's far-fetched and I can't ask him to swear about it. Kamash Malan, that I could ask him to swear about it.
What's the case of Vadai here in the Sunnah?
Vadai?
Yeah.
Is where I say that you surely did it. The case of Suffolk is where I say, I don't remember if you did it or not.
So it's klape the statement, not the Maisa.
That's correct.
That's the case.
That's correct. Now, just getting underway, but already towards the bottom of the Yomit. Just getting underway, but already towards we're going to have a very enigmatic Mishnah. This Mishnah is very enigmatic, and we'll see that we're going to learn it in many different ways. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hakol niyeh b'dvaro.
Before we start the Mishnah, I just when it says it should be like karka, we mean that einishbon ala karkos, that it shouldn't be able to swear?
No, it should be that it shouldn't be any other chiddush. Because we already said Gilgul Shvur by karka. So therefore, what's the chiddush?
Einishbon ala karkos, we still say he could swear.
Yeah, that's the chiddush of Gilgul Shvur.
Okay.
Now, Chol hanaseh domim ba'acher, anything that has value for something else. Now, the Gemara is going to think this means money. Kevin shezocha zeh, once Marshall gets the money, nischayev zeh b'chalifa. So he has to give me the exchange. So if I give him money, then he has to give me what I'm exchanging for the money, which is, let's say, his cow or his Corvette.
Corvette.
What?
I don't got a Corvette.
Not anymore. It's mine. So the bottom line is that sounds like you could do chalipin with money. And the Gemara is going to say you can't do chalipin with money. And then it says ketzad. Then the ketzad doesn't talk about money. Hichlev shar b'para. If we're bartering an ox for a cow, or chamor b'shar, or a donkey for an ox, kevan shezocha zeh, as soon as Marshall is zoicha in the cow, nischayev zeh b'chalifa, and he has to give me the ox. So the Gemara says, chalipin ma'niyu, what does it mean? Kol anasa dam ba'achar matbeya. Shmami no matbeya nasa chalipin. You could do chalipin with money? And we know that throughout Shas, we assume that money cannot be used as an instrument for chalipin. So the Gemara says, you're right. Amar Rabbi Yehuda hachi kama. Kol anishim domim ba'acher. I said this really, this is really cryptic. Whatever we have to evaluate its value in order to use it to pay for something else. So this means not money, because money you don't have to evaluate. So a kol anishin, as we welcome Reb Kramer, who didn't disappoint us, kol anishim domim ba'acher, whatever we have to evaluate in order that we pay for something else. That means, remember, that we evaluate the value of the ox in order that it should be payment for the cow. Kevan shezocha zeh, once Marshall takes possession of the ox, nischayev b'chalipin, then he is required to give me the cow. Which means that this is a little bit of a different form of chalipin than we're used to. One chalipin is using a symbolic object, like a sudar, right? And I give Gedalia the handkerchief, and in lieu of the handkerchief, he gives me over the cow. That's a symbolic chalipin. This would be straight up chalipin. Straight up chalipin means is I give Marshall the ox, and he gives me the cow. And that's exactly what the Mishnah says. If we exchange an ox for a cow, or chamor b'shar, or a donkey for an ox, shmami no. Says the Gemara, so if it's talking about that I give Marshall money and I get exchange the cow, then what's the ketzad? The ketzad is not talking about money. My ketzad. Hachanami, achikamer. Besides money, peris nami of the chalipin. You could do the chalipin with the items too. Ketzad hichlif basar shar b'para, the meat of an ox with a cow, or basar chamor b'shar. Kevin shezocha zeh, once Marshall is zoicha in the meat of the ox, nischayev b'chalipin, he has to give me the meat of the cow. So the Gemara says that works if you hold that you could do chalipin with produce. Hanichel Rav Sheshes Dama Peris Avde Chalipin. El Rav Nachman, according to Rav Nachman, he says that you could only use kalim as chalipin. You could only make it with a keli, like with a turban, like with a pen. That's what the Ramosha used to use. But no, he used a handkerchief. He used a handkerchief. El Rav Nachman, the Amar Peiris Lo Yavdei Chalipin. You can't use produce. Then Ma'i Kilamema, what does it mean? Hichlev Shar B'Para, or Para B'Shar? Says the Gemara, we have a whole new pshat in the Mishnah. Whole new pshat in the Mishnah. Whole new story. Back to the drawing board in learning what pshat in this Mishnah is. And by the way, Rabbi Say, I want to remind you that tomorrow night we start the amazing Gemara of Kibbud Av V'Ein. I mean, we should sell tickets. We should put an easy pass in front of the shul. Because if people would realize how exciting the Gemara is, they would flock here. Bring a friend. Says the Gemara, it's a good Gemara for children and grandchildren as well. So, but now let's see how Rav Nachman interprets the Mishnah completely different. Let's talk about it outside. What happened over here is I sell to Marshall. I don't know what got into me, but I sell to Marshall an ox. Must have been a real excited ox. I sell
Stubborn ox.
I sell to ox. No, I sell to Marshall.
Ooh, a slip of the tongue or a Freudian slip? Which one was that?
Who says it was a slip?
Rosh Hashanah's at the end of the week.
I should stop oxing around. So anyway, I sell to Marshall an ox. This ox is $3,000. So he owes me $3,000. Then I tell him, you know what, Marshall? Instead of giving me the $3,000, give me your cow, Elsie. As soon as we say that I'm getting Elsie with the hana, we'll add that word, it makes it better, with the hana of waiving the $3,000 debt, then I acquire Elsie.
Marshall has to agree.
What?
Marshall
has to agree, of course. I'm talking to Marshall. Let's see it inside. El Rav Nachman the Amar Peiris Lo Avdei Chalipin. You can't do Chalipin with produce. Ma'i Kilamema. Hachi Kamer. Yesh Domim. There is money owed. Shehein Kechalipin. That achieves a barter-like transaction. Ketzad. Hichlif Dmei Shar B'Para. If we switch the money that Marshall owes me for the ox that I sold him with his cow, or Dmei Chamor B'Shar, or the money that Marshall owes me for the donkey that I sold him for an ox, my timer. Savala Rabbi Yochanan, he holds like Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Dvar Torah Mois Kanas. Biblically speaking, you could acquire with money. Mashiach is not necessary biblically. Why do we necessitate that I have to draw it to me? Because otherwise there might be a fire by the seller and he won't protect my stuff. That'll tell me, your stuff got burnt. Milsa deshchichach gozbu rabban. But that decree, that kesef alone, is not kind of, that's only an irregular transaction. Milsa de loishchiach, a transaction which is accomplished by waiving a debt, which is not a usual transaction, like Rabbanan, and therefore I acquire Marshall's cow by waiving the money. So therefore, with that money that I allow him to keep, I acquire the cow. Says the Gemara, Reish Lakish Ta'ama Meshicha Mufureshes Min HaTorah. So therefore, you wouldn't be able to acquire with waiving the debt. You have to do an act of Meshicha. So Hanicha Isavala Karev Sheishis Dama Peris of the Khalifin, that you could barter with produce. So then when it says Hichlef Shar B'Para, Hichlef Para B'Shar, it means the basar of the Shar, the basar of the Para, Metaretz Karev Sheishis. Ela Isavala Karev Nachman Dama Peris Loy of the Khalifin, you can't do it with produce. So then what's the pshat in the Mishnah? Since according to him you can't say it's by waiving the debt because he holds that you can never acquire with kesef, Mashiach is needed. Or matbeya loikani, and it can't mean money because money is not used for chalipin. Then b'may mukila. Then how is he going to explain the Mishnah? Says he'll have to hold like Rav Sheshes. He'll have to hold. Why am I getting feedback? He'll have to hold like Rav Sheshes that Paris can make chalipa. Al karka Rav Sheshes. He holds like Rav Sheshes. Now, we all know throughout Shas we say hektish yoda yalel yoina. Hektish has an upper hand. And we're going to learn more about that in the next Gemara.
Yeah, let me ask you. When you use a pen or a handkerchief, is this a kinyan or a chalipin?
Chalipin.
Why? So what's it? I thought it was like a kinyan.
Chalipin is a kinyan.
Same thing.
One of the kinyanim is chalipin.
A chalipin, I thought you changed like a chamor with a...
No. It's also a symbolic gesture of barter. Now, Rishus Hagavaya Bekesef. This means that Hektish acquires things with Kesef. Because it says in the pasuk v'nasan hakesef v'kamloi. So even if you hold Mashicha is daraisa, but by hektish acquires with kesef. Urishus hahedyet, to bring movables into the possession of a commoner, non-hektish, b'chazakin. Now chazaka here means one of the three kinyanim, either hagva, Mashicha, or Masira. Amirasai ligvaya, a person that commits something verbally to hektish, meaning he says this shar should be a carbon, this item should be hektish, is kamisirasa lahedit, is as if it's binding, as if you gave it over to a commoner. Tan Rabbanan, now the Gemara is going to elucidate the whole Mishnah. Tan Rabbanan. Keitzad Rishus Hagvaya Bekesef. What does it mean that Rishus Hagvaya, the property of Gvaya, is with money? Gizber Shenas and Mois Bebehema. The temple treasure that gives money for an animal, Afilu Behema B'Seifa Olam, even if the animal is on the other side of the world. So he can't make Mashicha, he can't make Hagvah, he can't make Masira. Kana, he bindingly acquires it. Behedyet like Kana, but a hedyet can only be kainat sheyimshech until he pulls it to him if it's large livestock. Keitzad amirasai ligvaya kimisirasa lehedyet. What does it mean that an oral commitment to hektish is like delivering it to hedyet? Ha'omer sharze oila, a person says this act should be a burnt offering. Bayis ze hektish, this house is hektish. Afilu b'seifa olam, even if it's on the other side of the world, kana. Behedyet like kana, but by a commoner, the other person doesn't acquire it just by the verbal statement of the seller. At sheyimshech, if it's the axe, he has to do mishicha, and if it's in the house, v'yalzik, he has to do chazaka. What?
The Gizbor has to hear the statement.
No.
I can make the statement
No,
myself.
to make the statement by yourself. We're going to go further, Rabbi said, because I want to get to the Mishnah so that tomorrow night there'll be all fun. Now, I'm saying fun in a jocular manner. What I mean is that you could invite anybody, even not a veteran of the daf, to follow the daf. Oh, Richard Rosenzweig is here, Sandy Grunfeld is here, Neil Greenbaum is here. We want to welcome all of them joining us. But again, Rabbi say it's a wonderful time to work on getting new people to the shir. It really is. So
tomorrow I don't get picked on?
Tomorrow we'll try to do a double.
Okay.
Not double dap, but double picking.
Stop laughing, Shelley. It's not that funny.
Tomorrow night is bourbon night. You could get another 25 people easier for Kibbut Aveim. Come on. Just lunchtime tomorrow, you know?
Keep it up, to give your parents a l'chaim. Let's do it.
Now, Mishakai B'mana. Here we're going to talk about where, let's say, Marshall pulls an item of hektish to him, and at the time he pulled it to him, it was worth a money. But he didn't pay the money yet. You know, Marshall. He didn't give he didn't redeem it. He didn't get a chance to redeem it until it's worth 200. Now Marshall says, what do you mean? I pulled it, it was worth 100. It was already in my possession. Noisim assign. He has to give the 200. Why? Because by hektish, it's kesef that does the job. My time, huh? V'nosan ha-kesef ikamla. He has to give the money for it to come into his possession. And therefore, since he didn't give the money yet, he has to pay the value at the time that he's giving the money when it was 200. Now look at Marshall is going to be hopping mad with this one. Marshall, you should get ready a drink.
I'm ready.
Marshall is pulling an item of hektish to himself. Hektish has a shor, and Marshall is buying it. So he pulls it to him when it was worth.
We switched everything around. We're buying from Hector instead of.
I said that. Now, in this case, Marshall pulls it when it's worth 200. But then he's delighted when it came the time to fork over the money, it goes down to 100. So now Marshall says, oh, yeah. He still has to give 200. Why? Since when he acquires it, it's only worth 100. Why does he have to pay 200? You know why? It shouldn't be that if he was dealing with a commoner, they would have better rights than with hektish. You see, if Marshall was dealing with Irving, he's not so common, Irving. But relative to hektish, he's a commoner. So if Marshall was dealing with Irving and he pulled it when it was worth 200, he would have to give him 200. So is it right to say that when he's dealing with hektish and now when he comes to redeem it, it's 100, he only has to give 100? So we don't want to have hektish have less rights than Irving. Now we go, like Berish pointed out, now we go the other way around. Pidoi. He doesn't do the redeeming. I mean, he doesn't do the pulling first. Pidoi b'masayim. He redeems it at 200. He didn't get a chance to pull it to him. So this is obvious. He has to give 200 because when he redeemed it, that's what works by hektish. Because and then it was 200. He has to give 200. My time of now finally, if Marshall is patient, finally Marshall gets a break. Pedai b'mana. he redeems it for 100. He doesn't get a chance to do Mashiach until it's 200. Here we say Masha Podi Podi. What he redeemed is his. Ve'ein lo yalamana. He only has to pay 100. Why don't we say he should be like dealing with Irving? If he dealt with Irving and he gave him the money, and then when it came to pull it, it went up to 200, so doesn't he have to give Irving 200? Otherwise, Irving will back out, which he can do. Says the Gemara, yeah, but if Irving backs out once he gets the money, he would get a curse of Misha Para B'dara Mabel or B'dara Flaga, the one that punished the Dara Mabel, and Dara Flaga punishes one who accepts money and backs out. And therefore, since he can't back out, so by Hektish also, once he redeems it and gives the 100, he gets it for 100. Let's see inside. Amai. Hachanami nema lo yekoyach hedyot chomer mehektish. Hedyot shouldn't be more than hektish. Otu hedyot la b'misha parakai. If Irving would try to back out after he can, after Marshall gave him the money, he can technically, halachically do that because Marshall didn't do Mashiach yet. But if he does it, he gets a curse. Chas v'shalom. Of Misha Para, B'dara Mabel, B'dara Flaga, we curse a person who backs out after he received the money. So therefore, since there's a Misha Para by Hegdish, as soon as Marshall gives the money and redeems it, it locks in that price. So again, Rabbi say, remember tomorrow we have the special shir, the next 3 nights about Kibbutz of Aim. So you might want to come and bring a friend. It's good for women too. It's really it's a universal Gemara. Irving, do you remember when I gave the Iyun shir in Kiddushin?
Vaguely.
I believe that that was the very, very first thing that I had on TorahAnytime.com. I believe that you uploaded that to TorahAnytime.com. It's a very.
Me and Ira Lincoln.
That's correct. That's correct. I that was many, many years ago. Before you were in the shul, it was in the old shul, Mr. Führer's home. I gave Iyun Shiurim, and I gave an Iyun Shir in Kibbutz of Aim with Shulchan Aruch, but that's a long time.